These are real stories of real experiences that shape the character of real people. We all have incredible stories to tell of experiences that have shaped our character, and they all deserve to be heard. This is Character Talks. Wow, welcome to episode 1 of Character Talks. My name is Chris. I am the founder of the Character Mill, and I cannot even begin to tell you how stupidly excited I am that we are here. Character Mill has been in my head in a dream for more years than I can care to admit or imagine. And doing a podcast has always been something that has really intrigued me. So now I'm blending the two. This is episode 1. I am super stoked. My first guest in episode 1 is me. I'm going to just take a couple minutes of your time, tell you a little bit about the Character Mill, a little bit more about the Character Talks, and then share my story with you. My first story that I have put out there, the story of an experience that shaped one aspect of who I am and one of my, what I think is one of my biggest character traits. So a little bit about the Character Mill. The Character Mill is a new social platform. It is not meant to replace the other platforms that are out there, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter and all those, as they all have their application. I kind of joke around with folks and tell people that the Character Mill is kind of the multivitamin of social media. It's just something that if you take every day, you're going to feel better. We hope that the Character Mill becomes a community where people can go throughout the day and share pictures, quotes, thoughts, ideas, anything they want that has made them feel good. And that hopefully will inspire others to get out and live life, no regrets, and go embark on new adventures and experiences. It's also a place to share stories of experiences that have shaped who you are. And maybe you don't want to do a podcast. Maybe you would like to write that instead. We'd like to provide that opportunity, but also provide an opportunity for people to engage from around the world to engage in conversation about those experiences. Within the Character Mill, though, we also want to inspire you to go out and live life a little bit more every day. And so we have amazing character partners. These are companies or folks that have products or services that we think could enhance that next adventure or experience. And because you are a member of the Character Mill community, they're going to offer these products and services at a discount to you. And the list keeps growing. We have already, at the time of this podcast, we have secured character partners in over 8 states of the United States. We've got discussions with folks in Iceland. We've got discussions with folks in the UK, because eventually the Character Mill is going to be a global community. So certainly one of the benefits is taking advantage of those character partners. There's all sorts of other features within the Character Mill app, which is available for download on both Apple and Google. I'll let you take a look at those, and we'll talk about those further down the road. But the part we want to talk about, and the reason why we're here, is Character Talks. Character Talks is a place for people to share stories of experiences or adventures they've had that have shaped who you are. And then hopefully through my keen skill of observation and questioning, I'm hopefully going to be able to tap into that experience or adventure and kind of get into the really deeper part of what that's all about. Some of the decision-making process that they went through during that experience, how it may have affected them, and as many things as I can, going into these without any script. And I'm doing that for a reason. I want to do the podcasts like I'm listening to it for the first time, like you are. So I'm going to go in certainly with a couple questions in mind, but I really want to learn. I want to hear the story for the first time from these people. And I want to then ask the questions as they pop into my head, with the idea of really getting in deep to their experience. And our hopes is that through this podcast and through these different experiences, people will get motivated to do more things, to get outside, or if it's a life-changing experience, life-altering experience of some kind, hopefully it will give people a little bit of support or hope, compassion, that, you know what, life's going to be okay and they're going to get through it. So really looking forward to Character Talks and this podcast. If you've got a story or you know of someone who has a story that needs to be told, please let us know. When this first started, I was the first one to write within the app and within the other social platforms of a story or of an experience that impacted who I am today. I go into a little detail, and it's probably good that I'm doing this in a podcast form and not on video because I may or may not make it through this. For whatever reason, at the age of 10, my dad decided that he would choose alcohol and other things over his family. And he left the family, left my brother, sister, and mother and I. And may have, hindsight being 2020, it may have brought us together. It certainly brought my brother and sister and I closer. But my sister was at an age where she was getting ready to embark on her own life. And so she had her own dreams and aspirations, of which she's gone on and done incredible things. Probably affected my brother more than me because I think I was only 10. Certainly affected him more. And I'll get into that perhaps at the end. But I recognized how much, unfortunately didn't recognize until later, and later in life being in my 20s, how much my mom actually gave up of her life to make sure that I had what I needed to have to succeed in mine. Working double jobs. One of the memories I have is when I was in 6th grade, I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do a paper route that I had to do. I'd have to go down to the local police station because that's where the paper company dropped off the newspapers. And I would take all my newspapers and roll them up into my satchel. And I used an old LL Bean backpack. It was I don't want to say wicker, but it was kind of like a wicker backpack. And those that are from Maine would recognize, especially if you're an old fisherman, it's like the old fisherman pack. But I would strap that on my back and on my bike, and I'd roll all the newspapers up. And my first stop was the Knox Woolen Mill. And I would walk around the woolen mill and drop off these newspapers at various locations. And ultimately, while delivering newspapers, I would ride through a good portion of Camden, Maine. And I would inevitably get home at about 7 o'clock every morning. And every single morning when I got home, my mom would have made these frozen glazed donuts that you would put into an oven. And when I got home, there would be 3 of them sitting on a plate, warmed up, ready for me. What I didn't realize, or I guess respect enough until I was in my 20s, was that she would go to work at a local bank and be there by 8 o'clock, and she wouldn't get out of there usually till 4:30 or 5. She would then come home, cook me dinner, or attend one of my sporting events because I was an active athlete. And then for many years, she would leave at 8 o'clock to go work the overnight shift at a security company doing monitoring until about 2 o'clock. And then she would come home and sleep for 4 or 5 hours and get up and then do that again, simply so I could get what I needed to do. But that wasn't what I told the story about. That story will come later, in a future podcast, perhaps, maybe when someone interviews me. The Character Talk podcasts are made possible by our character partners and others who believe in the power of positivity, living life every day, and recognizing that every day provides us the chance for a character building experience. In this episode, we want to give a huge shout out to Chad Hollister for allowing us to use his song Life as our intro and closing music. I met Chad over 20 years ago in Camden, Maine. What started out as an innocent night of wanting to listen to some original music from someone I had never heard of ended with a group of us sitting around on the deck at my house at 4 a.m. raiding the refrigerator and becoming close friends. To this day, Chad and his family remain some of my closest friends. If you love original music that has a message of positivity and will undoubtedly make you smile and want to shake your moneymaker a bit, I urge you to check out Chad's music. Whether he plays solo or with his incredibly talented band, his music will make you feel better and smile. Be sure to check him out at chadmusic.com. But for whatever reason, at the end of graduation and looking back, I started to respect what my mom had done, attended every single sporting event that I did, ski race, baseball game, golf tournament. That after high school, I went off to college in Michigan, ended up transferring down to a school down in North Carolina. Made one of the craziest decisions that I'd ever made in my life when I was down in North Carolina. Had been promised scholarship to play on the golf team down there. They reneged. I basically gave the golf coach an ultimatum and said, put me on the team or I'm leaving. Just got to stand up on your side of the bargain. He didn't. And so I left. And that led me back into ski racing and specifically ski coaching, which has provided me the opportunity to coach at a very, very high level. That all brings me around to the first story that I told. When I was 20, I don't know why I came up to it, and through meditation, and I hope that maybe someday I'll look back and figure out why or how or exactly when I made the decision. Right now, I'm going with the idea that for some reason I think it was a song that I listened to sparked this thought. But I don't know the song, and I don't know exactly why. But when I was in Colorado working as a ski coach, I would come back to Maine during the summers and work as a PGA golf professional. But one spring, before I started to come back, I came up with the crazy idea that I wanted to find my dad. So at 20 years old, I did research and talked to my sister and family members and ultimately found him in New Hampshire. I can tell you, like something that happened 3 seconds ago, the feeling I had when I drove into his driveway, opened the door, got out, and closed the door, and then turned around, looked at the house, and literally said out loud, "What the fuck am I about ready to do?" Now, at the time, I think he and his new wife were upstairs taking a nap or doing something because I noticed that they both looked out the windows when I drove in. And so I walked very slowly. But for whatever reason, there was a sense of ease, certainly nervous as hell, but I was okay with being there. And I walked in the door, and she greeted me first. I had never met this new woman. And I walked in the door, and I walked in. I turned to the left. He came down the stairs. Now, he at that time had battled, I believe, some kind of a cancer. So he had lost some weight, although he at the time, I guess, was doing okay. But I remember him turning the corner, looking at me, and he literally fell to his knees and started crying because I was no longer that 10-year-old little boy. I was now a 20-year-old, 6'3", 200+ pound, very healthy and fit ski coach. And I remember seeing him crying, and there was literally no expression or no emotion. I just remembered seeing it and not really feeling anything. And so we sat down at his kitchen table, the three of us, two of us at first, then the three of us, and just kind of talked about like I was meeting someone for the first time, a little bit who I was, what I had been through, what I was doing. We at that time thought, and I was there for probably 2 hours, and we thought when it got all done, he wanted me to spend the night. And my immediate reaction was, no, thank you. This is a good first step. And so I was very comfortable with this first initial step. And so we agreed, we exchanged pleasantries, we hung out a little bit more, we laughed, we probably cried a little bit, agreed that we would stay in touch and hopefully at one point do this again. Well, that didn't happen. A couple years later, he passed away. I think I had maybe got one more birthday card from him or a Christmas card. And when he passed, my sister, brother, and I went to his service. And of course, we cried and mourned. Our dad had passed. But at the end of the day, I was comfortable. I was okay because the first time in my life, I had practiced forgiveness. And that was so important. And it was probably one of the first experiences that shaped my character and who I am today. Things are not black and white for me. It's a lot of gray because I would like to think I have a fair amount of empathy and compassion and forgiveness in people and in myself. But I take that with me today, and I practice forgiveness every single day. When I got ready to start the Character Mill project, and specifically the podcast, one of the key things about this is the ability for someone to take a moment and ask the question, who am I? And I did that to myself. And like most people, when I mentioned that to them, that was then followed by a deep breath. That question is super scary for some. Who am I? The key is to ask that question and only tell the answer to yourself. Because if I ask the question, who are you? The answer will get masked a little bit. You may not reveal completely who you are, and the honesty may not be there. So it's important to ask the question, who am I? I asked that question of who am I? And one of the things that came up was that I have a fair amount of empathy and compassion for others and forgiveness. And then I asked the question, and and there are also some things that I came up with that were not as great that went on my kind of to-do list of things that perhaps I need to work on. But then when I looked back on forgiveness, I went, okay, what, why? Why and how do I practice forgiveness? What caused me? What did I learn somewhere in my life to practice forgiveness? And instantly, that memory came back. And I had not thought about that memory in probably 15 years or 20 years. But I can tell that story like it happened yesterday. So I encourage you to ask that question of, who am I? And take some quiet time and really think of who you are. And if there's a story or an experience that really shaped who you are, we would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. And I would love to ask questions and delve into that topic as far and as deep as you are comfortable with doing. I think that would be incredible. And I think telling these stories to people will impact others more than we can possibly imagine. I will tell you that I told this story to who is now someone, a dear friend of mine. Only known him for a handful of years. But I was working in Long Island, New York. I had worked with this gentleman. He had a company that was did some work at the park for us. And I was not traveling down to New York anymore. And he reached out and asked me if I was going to be in New York that following weekend. And I said I was coming down on that Thursday, and then I would be there through Sunday. He's like, okay, I'm coming over from New Jersey on Saturday night. So he comes over to the park, and again, I hadn't seen him for probably 6 or 8 months. And he came over, and I said, we talked for a little bit and caught up with each other. And he said, I needed to come over because I needed to share something with you. And I said, okay. He said, well, after about 20 years, I reached out to my dad. I hadn't spoken to my dad in, I think it was 20 years, and I apologize if that's incorrect, but it was a very long period of time. And I haven't spoken to my dad, and so I called him. And we spoke, and ultimately he ended up flying out to Colorado, where he was living, and he drove back across the country to New Jersey with him. And now they're talking about a business together. They're talking about spending more time together, and they're talking about trying to get a relationship back of father and son. And literally a tear came to my eye, and I just went, that is incredible. And he said, Chris, what's more incredible is that doesn't happen if you don't share your story of your dad. And I will never forget that moment in my life, that moment of time when I sat under the pavilion with Chuck, and he said that to me, and it blew my mind. That my story, as simple as it may be, had such an impact on me, but then me telling the story had an impact like that to somebody else. That, my friends, is what Character Talks is all about. What something that we may consider to be pretty simple could really impact someone else's life. Ask those questions, be honest with yourself, and if you think you've got a story that someone else could maybe benefit from, or you could benefit from sharing, we would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. I would love to be able to ask you questions. Asking questions of stories like that allows me to grow as a person, and it would just be amazing. And if you get a chance to maybe practice a little forgiveness, then that's pretty cool too. Thanks for listening to this episode of Character Talks. You know, we all have stories of incredible adventures and life-changing experiences that have shaped our character and who we are today. The Character Mill community would love to hear your story of that experience or adventure. Your story could inspire someone to embark on a new adventure or empower them to make their world a little bit better. It could also provide insight and compassion for someone who may be going through a similar experience give them a bit of hope. Either way, your story is important and it needs to be heard. Please let us know if you'd like to be on a future episode, or if you know of someone who has a compelling story that needs to be told. In the meantime, we would love if the Character Mill community would like and share this podcasting community with all of your friends and family so this community can really grow. You know, lives can be impacted through story, and life is meant to be lived every day. And making a positive difference in someone's life is the coolest thing on the planet. Until next time, we hope you have a chance to get outside, and we hope you grabbed a friend when you did.
Bum bum sheeto, wow.